Hey everyone, my name is Joe LaBelle with Family Network on Disabilities. Today I'm going to be talking to you about collaborative communication. So let's jump in. Now, first things first, if you need translation services, please make sure that below my image, my box, there is a little area that says, currently it says English, and you can change that closed captioning to a language of your choosing. Si necesitas ayuda en español para leer qué estoy diciendo, usted sí se puede hacer, haga un clic a donde dice que inglés y se puede cambiar por español. Bueno, los otros idiomas no sé para explicar eso, pero aquí estamos. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, and we're so glad that you're here. So, Family Network Disabilities, we are a 501c3 family driven organization. So, what does that mean? That means that in order to work for FND, you either have to be a person with a disability like myself or a parent or family member of a person with a disability, since we work on that peer model. Okay. We do not act as attorneys, doctors, mental health professionals. We are providing information, resources, and support to families across the state of Florida. Now, FND is funded by the U.S. Department of Education under OCPS, the Office of Special Education Programs. We are also funded under the U.S. Department of Health and Human Resources for our Family to Family Health Information Center. You can see all of those programs down here at the bottom. Okay. Now, today is all about collaborative communication. And we're going to be talking about the good, the difficult, the areas of improvement, and different information about communication as a whole. So, only about 10% of communication is spoken word. About 30% is the tone of your voice. You can use different tones, different inflection, different things as you're speaking, different ways of speaking to infer uh, different questions, different meanings, different kind of explanations. And then about 60% of your communication is your body language. And that's really important. Okay. Communication, every action of communication, even silence is a form of communication. So we're going to talk in a little bit about not filling the gap. So not speaking to speak, not interrupting folks who are trying to take a moment just to process the question, right? Collaborative communication, where will you use it? Heads up, everywhere. So I gave this example in my last session, but I'm a trained facilitator, I'm a trained mediator, and after I went through my mediation training, and facilitation mediation is literally just how do you lead good communication. That's all that is. How do you kind of in a formulated way facilitate communication? Great. So so I told this story earlier. Um, after I got done with my mediation training, I had a plumber who had come over to my house. I had some issues, and right off the bat, he was just really, really upset about something. His emotions were high, his stress was high, and he was just fighting with me. And I could have taken the approach of calling his office. I could have kicked him out of my house. I could have, you know, yelled at him and gone back and forth because he was basically yelling at me. And instead, I said, nope, I want to engage in communication practices like we had talked about in my mediation training. And so I started asking him to explain things. I started saying, hey, could we brainstorm together ways that we could fix this? Hey, were some of our ideas as we were brainstorming. And what I heard you say was, this is really important to you. So what out of these options is going to allow us to get to the end goal, which is fixing my bathroom, right? So we systematically went through this process together, utilizing key communication skills and strategies. And guess what? He's still my plumber to this day. We had a really great experience, and he gave me a discount because we had such great conversation. So, big goal here, right, is using collaborative communication in your IEP meetings, your parent-teacher conferences, um, via email, text message, portal communication, any way that looks like. Um, Again, only 10% is spoken communication. So we're talking about a whole host of communication styles here. Now, when we engage in collaborative communication, we want to ensure values and respect are kind of at the forefront, right? Um, Communication breaks down when core values are crossed, disrespected, discarded, not considered. There's a lot of different ways in which core values can be crossed, is the best way I like to explain it. One of my core values, and core values are something that is unique to the person, they're individual. My core values are not your core values, but when you cross my core value, our communication is going to look pretty different pretty quickly. Okay. You're going to hear it in the tone of my voice. You're going to see it on my face. My body posture might change because you've just crossed one of my core values. So, a core value of mine is interrupting people in the middle of their speaking. So when I'm in a meeting, when I'm facilitating a meeting, I like to set expectations at the beginning, and I like to come to small agreements that we can put together to respect one another's time. One of those small agreements is not interrupting people, and that will be on all of my small agreements and facilitation for the end of time because that's a really strong core value to me. And when someone interrupts someone else, I take notice to that. Who did it? Why? When? I always recommend to parents and professionals when I'm facilitating a meeting, write down your question. So if someone's saying something and we really want to respond to it, write it down. You can use your cell phone. You can use a sticky pad, but also let folks know what you're doing in that moment. I talk about all those things to say that when core values are passed, are crossed, it is absolutely taken, it's noticed, it's taken into account, but there are different steps you can set up in each of the meetings you're a part of to ensure that your core values and the respect is there and you're able to facilitate a great conversation before any breakdown even happens. Now, we want to encourage both parties to express how you're feeling. Feelings are valid. Feelings are real. It's not feeling culture. It's reality. So something that Scott said really upset me. That's a feeling. Something that Jenny said really took me back to a moment where, I was worried about that same thing for my child. That's a feeling. I want to express how different things make us feel in those moments so that we can understand how to productively move forward. You may say, hey, Scott, I know we're here for your son, and you talked about how you are fearful of what might happen to him at X, Y, and Z points in his life. Could we just take about 5 minutes? My son went through something very similar, and I'm feeling a lot right now. And I just want to take a moment or two to recollect myself so that I can move forward with this meeting, with this conversation. That's okay. Promote mutual respect. So we want to, again, understand what one another is going through to the best possible extent we can and be respectful of the fact that we are working towards a common goal, and that's the child, the student, the learner. Allow both disagreement and discussion. Disagreement happens. Parent to teacher, teacher to parent to student. Disagreement's supernatural. But disagreement does not equal disrespect. And that's really important. Disagreement should flow into that discussion avenue. So, and we're going to talk about some of these strategies as we go through the presentation. But Sally, I'm not really understanding um, the. I'm not really understanding what the strategy is you're wanting to put in place. What I hear is blah 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 blah. What I hear is this strategy. Can you help me understand more about it? Yeah, absolutely. This is the reason why I use this strategy. These are the best practices. Okay, I understand that now. That makes more sense. Thank you so much for explaining it. I've got more information. Or actually, you know, I would love to dig a little bit deeper with you because it's my understanding that there's some new guidance out from the Department of Education around that best practice specifically. Could we take maybe a 10-minute sidebar and look at that together so we can come to a mutual understanding of what that best practice is? So then we can move forward with the best recommendation. Is that okay? Yeah, that'd be great. Remain focused on the topic at hand, which is what? The student. Partnership is so critically important to be able to establish. But when partnership breaks down, there needs to be steps to build that back up. Now, I always say I work in partnership with the professionals that I help support. I work in partnership with families that we help support at FND. And this mutual cooperation, working to achieve a singular goal, you're not going to be able to do it on your own. Whether you're the classroom teacher, whether you're the parent, you're not going to be able to do it on your own. We've got to be able to come to small agreements that lead to larger solutions and goals that are monitored with fidelity, like all of these buzzwords, right? But through strategic planning and effort, we can make those buzzwords into reality. Okay. Now, there's definitely some barriers to communication. There's negative history. The special education world is this small, respectively. So you may have history with someone, you know, and the staffing specialist might have been a teacher your child had 10 years ago, and maybe that wasn't a great experience. And that's okay. You may know each other from personal environments, and that's okay. Something may have been said in a previous meeting that kind of elevated things. What we want to do with that negative history is first and foremost address it. Lay it out on the table. Hey, you and I have not had the best past. We both have Joe as our goal is to help him succeed, our common goal. And so can we please, can we talk through this so that we're able to move forward effectively? I would not do this in front of the entire IEP team. You can ask for a private, mediation. You can ask for a sidebar. You can ask for a one-on-one conversation, but just kind of lay it out on the table and have that conversation. Health, whether it's the parent's health or the teacher's health or the staffing specialist's health, health can play a really big role in barriers to communication. So all of a sudden, the teacher is out for, in and out for months on end because of some chronic health issues. We're all people. We all get sick. But the reality is the child shouldn't be left behind either. So from the parent perspective, When we have key figures in that child's educational experience, when we have key figures who are not able to be there consistently, you want to reach out. Excuse me. You want to reach out to the district and specifically ask, hey, I know this is a barrier right now. Who else can I form partnerships with? Who else can I work with to make sure that the goals aren't falling behind? From the educator's perspective, you're not getting as much response from mom or dad or guardian as you used to. It may be time to reach out and see, kind of what's going on. All of a sudden, you hear, mom's got a pretty significant health issue, and but that progress still needs to be made for Joe. So, reaching out to the family and saying, hey, I absolutely understand there's a lot going on right now at home. I get that. I just wanted to see, is there someone I could collaborate with on from the parent side, from the home side, that I can, provide some information to so that Joe isn't left behind, right? Um, Jargon and alphabet soup, that's a big barrier to communication, right? So we are FND, funded by OCEP, which receives its authorization under IDEA. We are also the F2F under HRSA, funded by MCHB with discretion or with authorization coming out of Title One or Title Five, Title Five congressional discretion. That's a whole bunch of acronyms, and that's not productive. So, as I had said before, when I facilitate a meeting, I like to come up with expectations and small agreements throughout that process. So, the expectation is we're not going to use acronyms in IEP meetings, parent teacher conferences. If we're in, a meeting of just professionals who have all and family members can be professionals. Let's be honest and open about that. So, family advocacy is a professional experience. But, if you're in an environment where everyone is using the same jargon, including yourself, great. That's okay. That's acceptable. That's a part of those already established norms. But I always encourage that my staff, my team members have the right and know they can stop the meeting and ask for clarification on that acronym. Now, in IEP meetings and parent teacher conferences, communication back and forth, I do like to set the expectation. I recommend to parents to set the expectation. FND does not go into IEP meetings, but I recommend to parents to set the expectation that, hey, can we avoid jargon and alphabet soup? Can we try our best to spell everything out and then use the acronym? So we are Family Network on Disabilities, FND for short, because it is important for families to understand some of that jargon and those acronyms because they're going to keep hearing them, but they need to know what those words represent. We're all human, so it's not going to be perfect. It might mess up from time to time, and that's okay. Perfectly fine. But just a helpful reminder. Hey, Chris, I appreciate how much you've been spelling out the acronyms throughout this meeting, but you had just used an acronym that I wasn't familiar with. Could you help me understand the PPEC? And great. Yep, I can do that. Fear and intimidation. So there's lots of different reasons why educators could be fearful. It's a lot of reasons why families can be fearful. When we think about fear, something that I think about is the fear of the future. And, a parent may be walking into an IEP meeting, and as they walk into that meeting, they see a flyer in the hallway for homecoming, for prom, college fair, things that their student may never get the opportunity to do. No one asked them to homecoming. It's a couple weeks away. It's next week. It's this week. That fear of what's going to happen in the future is real. That can change the entire dynamic of the meeting. And they may not even know that that's the reaction they're feeling until later in the day, the next day, several days later, or even weeks later. If ever they identify that feeling to happen to see that poster. So, strategies for communicating when conflict arises. Now, this whole presentation is about collaborative communication, right? But conflict is natural. We talked about that. And conflict happens when communication breaks down. So let's look at some strategies for how to get conflict from a breakdown into a collaborative area. So active listening, pay full attention, avoid interrupting, and validate, don't confirm feelings. We'll talk about that in a second. So, um, again, when we start out the meeting, we want to set agreements. So we're not emailing, we're not texting during the meeting. Those things are super obvious, even on Zoom. If I'm going like this, yeah, you know I'm texting, like it's right here. But this is the way that I take notes at meetings. So when we make those small agreements, I add a caveat to let people know, hey, I just wanted to let you know that I'm going to be taking notes on my cell phone. It's the best way for me to keep all my thoughts collected. I'm not really great with handwriting, so I just wanted to, let you know that I am paying attention. I'm just taking those notes. Really important to provide that clarification of what we're doing, because perception is everything. And if I didn't say, hey, I am paying attention, I'm just taking notes on my cell phone, people may think or feel that I'm being disrespectful. Or if I saw that, it might be crossing one of my core values and leading into that disrespect area. When we're validating feelings, I say we want to validate, not confirm, because at this point, we don't know what all has happened. So you're in the middle of the IEP meeting and a parent says, "Oh, the teacher did X, Y, and Z." I can't I can't understand how that, I can't imagine how that would have made you feel. I hear what you're saying, but we don't have all that information. We don't know what fully happened and transpired. So we don't want to confirm. Same with parents when we're in these meetings and we are hearing X, Y, and Z of, well, this happened and this happened and this happened. Yeah, that I hear what you're saying. It sounds like you were very, very busy. Um, Now, I would like to kind of take our next steps. And can I ask you, how would communicating or how would scheduling time to make sure that Joe is receiving his services, um, how does that best work for your schedule? So, having that open ended question, can you tell me more about that? How did that make you feel? So, really pulling some information out, right? You want to stay neutral and avoid taking sides, even if you have personal opinions, especially if you have personal opinions. Um, Use more neutral language and refrain from making judgments. So, um, again, wow, I can't believe she said that. I can't believe they would have done that to you. That's not language that's going to promote a partnership. It's not going to promote a successful communication style, right? Clarity and summarization. So using phrases like, so I want to just pause for a second and check for clarification. I want to check for accuracy. What I heard you say was X. Could you confirm, is that kind of what you meant? Or if not, could you help me understand what you meant to say? Or could you help me understand what your intention was? Things along those lines, right? Moving towards resolution. So, seeking common ground. Now, when we identify that shared goal, we want to be vocal about it, and we want to be vocal consistently. So both of us want the best for Joe. That's where we're at. Now I know that we have I know that we have a disagreement when it comes to this, but because both of our shared goals are the best opportunities for Joe, the best educational outcomes for Joe, let's talk about this disagreement. Let's identify and brainstorm, which is our next one, strategies for success. So I love a good brainstorming session. And when I brainstorm, if it's online, I use, oh goodness, I use Jamboard with Google. If it's in person, I'll use those big sheets of paper and put them on the walls. And I usually break out the brainstorming into different buckets. So we have an overarching topic. Joe is struggling in reading. Great. What could we be doing at home is one bucket. What could we be doing at school in terms of reading supports? Great. What could we be doing in terms of identifying barriers? Great. So break it out in terms of buckets. During the brainstorming part of that phase, you really want to allow all ideas and options to flow in organically, right? So whenever I do this with my team, my staff, or a team I'm a part of, I don't discredit or dismiss ideas right off the bat. And that's incredibly important. So I know as I'm hearing things, hey, this isn't going to work because of our funding model, or this isn't going to work because of restrictions we have by the US Department of Education. Like, there are definitely things that I hear through the brainstorming practice that I'm just like, that's not going to work right off the bat, but I'm not going to dismiss it. Okay, great. Put it on the board in its bucket. Great. Put that in its bucket. Then we go down a little bit further. From here, let's select the top kind of 3 options per bucket. Then let's put together a pro and con list, or a pro and areas of improvement list that we're able to utilize to whittle down to what's going to make the most sense. And some of the ideas can be merged together. Some of the ideas might be duplicates, just in different areas. And then how do the ideas complement one another? We always want to leave with an action plan. And that action plan doesn't have to be super, super formal, built out, look beautiful. The action plan just needs to be some clear steps. Who's responsible for what? What is the timeline? Who is doing what, where, when, with who, how long, how many times? Like, what does that look like? We want to have regular check-ins built in. And then we really want to schedule follow-up meetings to ensure that success is happening. So the conflict is behind us, and now we're in kind of that maintenance and improvement phase of this collaborative relationship. Okay. So we have regular communication, and this is setting periodic check-ins. And it's really, really important to check in when there's not a problem. We seem to only want to check in when an issue comes up, not when things are going well. Great. Then you also have the option of, emails, brief meetings, just simple and more informal touch bases. Not everything needs to be an IEP meeting. Not everything needs to be a parent-teacher conference to do a check-in. Feedback loop. I love the feedback loop, because the feedback loop is one of those academic areas that demonstrates and shows every study based on it shows that this improves communication tenfold, which is awesome. So feedback loop is you're starting with the idea of what you want to do. Then you go into the investigation phase of investigating how to make what you want to do happen. You've identified a solution. You then go from solution into first stage implementation into data collection, then full implementation, then from full implementation into analysis of the process and program you're implementing, so that strategy to achieve the goal, and then you come back for full review, right? There should be communication at every single stage. Stakeholders should be involved at every single stage along the way. You should be coordinating efforts. Like, those are all critical parts, right? And you should be reflecting what's happening in the school with what's happening at home. So that feedback loop, it's an awesome model. Oh goodness. I forget his name. The person who is in charge, or who developed it, it'll come to me. I'll say his name in just a little bit. Transparency. Gotta love transparency. Honest conversations prevent minor issues from even happening, which is incredibly accurate. And just, you want to feel comfortable with the people you're working with. You want to trust the people you're working with, because those people are working with your most prized possession. Whether you're a teacher or a parent, I don't care who you are in this webinar right now, the most prized possession either of you have is that child, that student that you're supporting. So you want to feel comfortable with the other side, and open transparency is the way to achieve that. You want to celebrate success. Now, I was in high school before, so I had an IEP for a time. I was in 3rd grade till 12th grade. I then accessed ADA services, Americans with Disabilities Act, accommodations and services during my undergrad at FSU, and then throughout my graduate work at NSU. And I was in high school before I heard a single positive thing about myself in an IEP meeting. It was hard. It was really hard. And so when we talk about celebrating successes, we need to encourage our students. They need to hear positive attributions. I'm not going to say reinforcement. This isn't PBIS in that sense. They need to hear positive attributions of who they are to keep going and to succeed. Now, in addition to positive celebrating successes, we also need to celebrate our successes in these meetings. Hey, team, I just want to take a moment and thank everyone for engaging in that brainstorming activity. It went really smoothly, or, we had one hiccup and we were able to get past it through a sidebar conversation. We were able to continuously follow our agreements that we made at the beginning of the meeting. I just want to thank everyone for working in partnership with one another throughout this experience. Yeah, sounds good. Then, excuse me. So, and then again, that building that ongoing trust and collaboration, education resources. So I'm a professional that works in special education. I have been working in special education for decades now. And I also, in addition to being the director of programs at FND, I worked on several U.S. Department of Education technical assistance centers, supporting hundreds of other organizations across the United States who do similar types of parent engagement, advocacy, and educational work. Great. I'm attending conferences constantly. I'm attending webinars. I'm reading the newest technical assistance papers, the newest Dear Colleague papers, because my job as a professional is to improve my knowledge and to provide the best information I can to the family, to the student, period, hands down. And those strategies are constantly evolving. We're getting new information, new research about new ways to help our learners. Now, parents, on the flip side, it's your job to be educated and informed as well. Teachers are not going to know everything, and that's okay. Like, again, I'm going to keep going back to it. We are all people. And so, from the parent perspective, my organization, Family Networking Disabilities, we are built and established to support families with information, resources, and support. We are here to help guide you through, free of cost, guide you through those processes of understanding the really, really complex system of IDEA, which is the law that protects your child with disability, right? None of this is intuitive. None of this makes, frankly, a lot of sense because it's built in a congressional way. So, anywho, it's built in a way that is confusing and that's factual. That's why so many of us are here to support. So that constant education and reinforcement. Empower both parties with knowledge and strength. Now, we talked a few moments ago about active listening in one of the previous slides, and I'm going to just touch on a few things here. You want to be neutral and non-judgmental. You want to watch your face. I think about that a lot. When I was young in my career, I was at a conference and someone said something that just really did not sit well with me. And one of my colleagues leaned over and she goes, "Joe, you need to watch your face right now because I can see every emotion that you are thinking." And so now, anytime I am in an environment where I'm just like, my emotions are high or I'm feeling a certain way, I'll just think, I need to watch my face. Because again, that's body language, right? Patience. So, allowing for that period of silence, allowing for that gap not to be filled. They might be thinking about it. When I was in my IEP meetings, I would be asked a question by one of the teachers, by one of my parents, and you know, we never practiced questions that would be asked. We really should have, and I encourage you to, but I didn't know what was going to be asked of me. I needed time to think about it. I didn't even know what my options were. So as I was thinking, maybe 5, 6 seconds had gone by. Mom jumps in, dad jumps in, educator jumps in, bam, bam, bam. And all of a sudden, I'm just like, oh, okay, I'm just going to slink back in my chair. There's nothing for me to do. You guys have it all figured out. I'm not a part of this process. The same is true when you ask, I'm the parent. I'm asking an educator, Susan, the question. And, she's naturally thinking about it. And then all of a sudden, her peer, Betty, jumps in and answers for Susan. The question wasn't for Susan, it wasn't for Betty, it was for Susan. We need to give each other that respect to not fill those gaps. Give verbal and nonverbal feedback through smiling, eye contact, leaning in, by providing affirmation of, yeah, that makes sense, head nodding, yep, 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 I agree with that, yep, yep, I agree with that. That's not interrupting. That's verbal affirmation as you're kind of giving that head nodding. Then ask questions, reflect back with what was said, ask for that clarification. Like, all of these things are steps inside of that active listening setup. Now, working with teams. So how do teams function? Lots of teams function in different ways. I work on one team. It's DCDT. Don't ask me what the acronym is. We host the Visions Conference each year. So the Visions Conference is the statewide transition conference, And our board of directors is an entirely volunteer board of transition professionals across the state of Florida. And so each year for the DCDT conference, we're meeting every month. And then after, as the conference gets closer, we meet multiple times a month. Anyway, all of our meetings are after hours because is it a professional association? Yes. But we are also meeting after hours because it's volunteer. What makes that team successful? Different models, metrics, different goals that you're working towards. All of those things are going to change what equals success. Your desired outcomes, the level of outcome you're looking for, all of those things will equal success in different ways. So, what you guys worked on, last quarter, last month, last year, all of those things will be shifting, which is why it's important to have that feedback loop so you can be on the same page, have the open communication again for the same page. Now, these are just some of the different teams you may be working with. Wrap Services, which is really like an all-inclusive team that is supporting the family through education, health, mental health, community activities, maybe some workforce innovation programs, all these different things. Um, school, medical, and then different project-based teams. Now, coming together is the beginning. Working together for a common goal is progress. Good communication, good collaborative communication is success here. Now, I want to thank everyone so much for being a part of this presentation today. I'm going to ask Angela real quick if we have any questions in the chat that I can help answer. And again, thank you everyone for being here. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. But as of right now, we've got none. So thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate your time. And please do not forget to take the survey. Please complete that. It is tinyurl.com/big capital B IDEA 101423. Or you can always scan the QR code with your phone. Thank you so very much, everyone. Have a great day.